The night air hung heavy over the godswood, each leaf shivering with secret tidings. Arya Stark stood barefoot in the damp grass, eyes half closed, letting the murmurs of the heart tree seep into her bones. Moonlight splintered upon the weirwood's pale trunk, and the faces gouged in its bark seemed to breathe with her. She inhaled slowly, tasting damp earth, pine, and the faintest trace of blood from a rabbit she had skinned an hour before. The world had fallen quiet. No hounds baying, no forge hammers ringing. Only the godswood's slow, patient heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the walls of Winterfell, ravens hid in the rafters of men, carrying rumors south like black-feathered confessions. But within the walls of her childhood home, Arya could almost pretend. The realm waited for her to open her eyes and name its fate. Almost. She pictured the riverlands of her memory, muddy banks of the Trident, cattails bending beneath spring storms, the silent, dead faces of men she had passed in shapeless dawn. Even now she heard their voices. Oliver gasped beside a smoky hearth. Rorge gurgled on a blade kissed with needles blue steel. The Night King shattered in a storm of ice. Yet these were ghosts compared with the living who clogged the hallways of King's Landing. Littlefinger with his soft, plotting smile. Cersei drinking her way toward madness. Lords who preened like crows upon red marble balustrade. Winter had broken on the realm's spine and receded, but the game played on, each piece tipped in poison. Arya opened her eyes. The face before her was her own. Wolfstark, feral, sharpened by secrets. But she focused on the indigo sky beyond, tracking constellations Bran once named for her in hushed whispers. Far above, the sword-shaped pattern the Southron maesters called the Warrior glimmered. She imagined snapping it from the heavens and hiding its star steel in her sleeve. A weapon of cosmic origin, the kind she would need soon. Behind her, faint footsteps crushed wet leaves. She did not move. The sound told her everything. Sansa's measured tread, never hurried, not since the flames at the Sept of Bela taught her the cost of speed. Arya knew the cadence of every Stark left breathing. She waited until her sister was close enough that the warmth of candlelight lit the edges of the godswood. The torch Sansa carried hallowing her in embers. "Arya," Sansa murmured, voice carefully empty of command. "It's late. I know. You should rest. Tomorrow's council will be just like the council before." Arya replied, steady as the blade in her hand. She turned, letting the torch catch the curve of needle's point. Men talking themselves in circles, pretending they can stitch a realm back together with clean words and crooked promises. Sansa's lips pressed thin. "We need their banners. We need their coin. We need their votes if we mean to prevent the South from devouring itself again." Arya sheathed the sword. "Do we, though?" A silence deepened between them, full of shifting shadows. A year ago, they would have snapped at one another, sharp as winter air. Now the quiet was heavier, molded by shared grief, and the specter of parents long gone. Sansa studied her sister's face for a long moment before answering. "Bran sees paths none of us can," she said softly. "He believes certain alliances must stand." "He's seen too many paths," Arya countered, "and none of them end with the realm free of tyrants. If Cersei's ghost still haunts the Red Keep, another vulture will soon roost on the Iron Throne. It's a throne built of swords. It calls to killers." She drew a deep breath. "Perhaps it's time a killer answered." Sansa's brow furrowed. "You mean to go back south?" "I mean to finish what others never could." Wind rushed through the branches and hissed like drawn steel. Sansa lifted the torch higher, revealing small scars. Arya kept hidden beneath her collar, faint, silvered reminders of Braavosi lessons, of faceless rituals and whispers in the House of Black and White. Sansa knew little of those nights, but she sensed enough. Fear flickered in her eyes, a fear mixed with reluctant admiration. "King's Landing will eat you alive," she warned. Arya's grin was a knife unsheathed. Let it try. On the 5th morning, after the new moon, Arya rode from Winterfell alone. Not even a direwolf's shadow padded her trail. Nymeria still roamed the riverlands with a pack too wild to tether, and Ghost remained Bran's silent sentinel, unnervingly calm for a beast bred of snow and winter star. So Arya traveled in human skin, cloaked in pelts and anonymity. Her horse, a mottled gray courser she called Ash, carried her through pale dawns where frost laced the grass like veins of glass. She slept little, ate less, letting hunger keep her sharp. Each night she whispered names she had not spoken aloud in seasons. Myrcella Baratheon's killers, the Iron Bank's secret usurers, lords who sold refugees to slavery across the narrow sea, and one name newest upon her tongue, Alan Ambrose, newly risen hand of the king, rumored puppet master behind the stuttering regency that ruled for the infant Tommen Tutai. Ambrose draped himself in virtue, but stories of vanished rivals and conveniently timed plagues shadowed him. Arya tasted the name as she would a rare spice, strange, potent, requiring caution. She crossed the neck beneath sullen skies, passing the crumbling causeway where waterlogged stakes marked the graves of ironborn raiders. Reedmen nodded from the reeds, green-capped and watchful, but none challenged her. They recognized a Stark's features even if fur concealed her sigil. Passing Moat Caelin's black stones, she recalled Theon's siege, Ramsay's banners flapping like flayed skin. Memory dripped like old blood, but she pressed southward, measuring each dawn by the steady thump of Ash's hooves. The trident lay wide and brown, swollen by recent thaw, its currents carrying branches and secrets toward the sea. Arya ferried across at Stonehenge, trading 2 iron stags for a spot beside wool merchants who laughed too loudly. She sat silent, hood drawn, until one merchant asked whether she had kin waiting in the capital. Her response, a shrug, killed the conversation. Nights by the campfire, she practiced the stillness a faceless girl must hold. She imagined wearing Sansa's elegant composure, then Lord Gendry's blunt jaw, then Davos' wary eyes. Faces were tools. She had not donned another's skin since riding west of Westeros, where she found only endless water and a sense that her path curved inexorably back to the realms she once fled. Now she summoned memories of the mummers she met in Essos, how voice and breath and posture could birth illusion. But she would not truly become no one again. She was Arya Stark of Winterfell, and each mask would be a stepping stone, not a destination. By the time she entered the Reach, sun baked the earth hard enough to crack. The fields near Bitterbridge waved with half-grown barley. Orchards sang with bees, yet along the Gold Road rumors sprouted thicker than wheat. Bandits boasting Tyrell sigils raided trade caravans. Crownland scouts hanged their corpses from cypress trees as warning. The small folk spoke of Lord Ambrose imposing new tariffs to rebuild the royal fleet, while quietly strangling dissent. They spoke of Queen Regent Shireen, cursed by grayscale scars, but wielding her father's stern counsel. And they whispered of the Iron Throne, that cursed seat smelted in dragonfire, now reduced to melted slag, after Daenerys' final burn, yet rebuilt again by smiths seeking favor. Every king wanted the throne reforged in his likeness. Arya paused one night at an abandoned sept, walls spray-painted with graffiti in bastard Valyrian. She traced one phrase, Valar Morghulis, with cold fingers. All men must die. But she wrote beneath it, in the dust on the wall, Valar Dohaeris, all men must serve. Then beneath that, another line, some choose how they serve. She left before dawn. 2 leagues north of King's Landing, Arya guided Ash off the Gold Road into a copse of cedar. There she found a lean-to hidden by tangled vines, stocked with old provisions, hardtack, salted goat, a half-empty skin of Dornish red. It was a dead drop used by the Brotherhood without banners in a season when Thoros still walked the earth. She spent the afternoon mending her leather jerkin, reinforcing a seam above the heart with blackened rings of chain. Then she opened a wooden box buried beneath loose soil. Inside lay tools wrapped in oilcloth, a vial of manticore venom, a spool of catgut wire, 3 slender needles forged of Valyrian steel shards, hammered flat and wickedly found. Last, she withdrew a small pouch of coin and a folded parchment bearing an emblem no southern eye would recognize. A running wolf silhouetted against a crescent moon, the sigil of a Braavosi shipping guild sympathetic to House Stark. With sunset staining the horizon the color of ripe persimmon, ARYA stripped and scrubbed away travel grime in a shallow creek. She washed her hair with ash soap until the water ran clear, then braided it tight against her skull. From her satchel she drew a dyed wig of midnight curls and fitted it snug. Next came the costume, simple woolen dress, patched at the elbows, apron smeared with stage paint to mimic stubborn stains. A small lump beneath her bodice hid a thin breastplate of boiled leather. She slung a traveler's satchel over one shoulder and draped a tattered cloak about her. Hood frayed, edges weighted, so it hung heavy to disguise her gait. When she studied her reflection in the creek's dark mirror, the woman staring back bore no trace of Stark. This was Sarah, a mummer's daughter turned laundress, come to seek wages in Flea Bottom. Her left eye drooped slightly, an affectation she could sustain with minute muscle tension. Her lips bore a mild quiver, as though from some ancient fright. ARYA practiced the character's slouch, the manner in which she worried an invisible hangnail, the half-whisper with which she apologized for taking up space. Night settled. ARYA doused her campfire, scattered the ashes, and led Ash deeper into the woods where she hobbled the horse and murmured goodbye. In Sarah's persona, she would walk the remaining miles along narrow goat tracks, entering the city as any other desperate soul displaced by war. The streets of King's Landing would swallow her. The stench of tanneries and night soil carts would mask even a direwolf's keen nose. And somewhere amid the alleys of silk and shadow, ARYA would arrange an introduction to Lord Alan Ambrose. Introduction, she mused, was a polite word. In truth, she would stalk him across marble corridors, through perfumed assemblies, into candlelit privy chambers where secrets sat upon the air like flies on meat. She would learn the geometry of his habits, the rhythms of his breath, the tempo of his lies. Then she would decide how best to sever him from the living world. But not yet. Assassination done properly was slow, deliberate, almost tender. One must court the kill as a lover, mapping every inch of vulnerability before the final, fatal kiss. She would not rush, for rushing bred errors. If Lord Ambrose fell too soon, power would ripple outward, unpredictable as wildfire. And if he served some greater, darker architect, one who manipulated regents like pieces on a Savas board, then ARYA must peel back each layer until she stood face to face with the source. The queen must know her realm's rot before she can purge it. She drew a knife and carved a single line upon the cedar trunk, a straight slash, meaning path found in the silent language of the free cities. Should Sansa or Bran send scouts south, they would recognize the sign. But ARYA expected none. This was her hunt, hers alone. She tightened the straps of her boots, cinched her cloak, and silently recited the steps of the water dance. Swift as shadows, subtle as cats, calm as still water. Then, without glancing back, she slipped through the trees and became one more pilgrim, trudging toward the twinkling fires that crowned the distant hill of Visenya's holdfast. King's Landing greeted her with wrath. Even before the first crooked roofs appeared, the wind carried the city's bitter offerings, fish entrails baking on the wharf, vinegar from dyers' vats, smoke from tar pit braziers, where sailors burned lice from their clothing. Sarah allowed her shoulders to droop further beneath the weight of that fetid welcome. She joined a line of small folk waiting to pass the mud gate, guards checking carts for contraband. Iron dogs patrolled the crowd, lean, half-ethereal mastiffs wearing studded collars. Their handlers, sellswords in cheap mail, carried clubs stained from recent policing. A girl not yet 10 slipped through the queue, begging for coppers. Sarah fumbled in her pouch, produced a single bronze coin, and pressed it into the child's grime-coated palm. Their eyes met for a heartbeat, brown on brown, though the girls lacked the fury ARYA banked within. The child darted away. At length, Sarah reached the guard post. A soldier with pock scars squinted. "Name and trade." "Sarah, my lord," she whispered. "Washerwoman. Heard the Lion's Head Tavern needs linen scrub." He grunted. "Plague still about in Flea Bottom. Keep clear of the shivers, and we won't have to burn your corpse." "No need can." "What?" "But," Sarah nodded meekly. She stepped past, feet sinking in mud that stank of urine and spilled ale. She crossed the bridge, over the Blackwater Rush's sluggish tributary, where bloated rats scuttled along ropes. Overhead, the everyday gold banners of the Baratheon stag flapped beside new cloth, an apple quartered by a golden cross, the sigil of House Ambrose. The sight steeled ARYA. Ambrose had wasted no time stamping his mark upon the capital. Within the warrens of Flea Bottom, she rented a pallet in an attic dormer of a squalid inn. 20 other women slept there. Head to-toe, the air thick with breath and mildew. During daylight, Sarah scrubbed tunics and sheets, her hands turning raw. But at dusk, ARYA roamed. She moved through pot shops and penny theaters gathering rumors. She learned the Hand dismissed 3 master whisperers in as many months, replacing them with cut-rate informants loyal only to coin. She learned gold cloaks patrolled less at night, leaving darkness to rule itself. She learned Lord Ambrose's personal guard, the Apple Blossoms, were chosen more for fanaticism than skill. She also learned the Red Keep's kitchens had taken on a new pie girl named Jane Heddle, said to be sharp-tongued, but quick with a knife. ARYA smiled at the coincidence. Even the ghosts of her own story returned to echo her path. Weeks passed. Sarah's wages vanished into bribes, every copper a seed. Rats nibbling in the dark knew more than wall sconces in the day. ARYA fed those rats, and they grew fat on secrets. She discovered the royal treasurers chartered private ships to carry uncut sapphires quietly out of the Stormlands, a covert purchase by Lord Ambrose to secure sell-sale contracts in Lyce. She learned of a masked physician attending the Queen Regent by night, leaving before dawn. She learned the Crown's blacksmith struggled to finish new links of chain for a monstrous scorpion, ballista rumored to be mounted atop Maegor's holdfast. Through it all, she tracked Ambrose's movements. He dined every second evening with the High Septon, breakfasts with the Master of Ships on Aegon's High Hill, midday petition hearings in the throne room. Yet a sliver of his schedule remained unspoken, a private prayer vigil in the sept of the stonemason's daughter, held alone from the 9th bell to the 10th each Maiden's Day. No god accompanied him by his own edict. Piety, he claimed, required solitude. ARYA knew a staging point when she saw it. She spent 6 nights mapping the ways into and beneath the Septii. A disused culvert from Maegor's era ran beneath its foundation. Rats and runoff pooled there, but the brickwork remained strong. On the 7th night, ARYA disguised herself as an apprentice mason, carrying a leather roll of chisels. She inspected the culvert wall where ancient mortar crumbled. A single brick, removed stealthily, revealed a gap wide enough for a slender body to slip through. A silent path from darkness into the heart of the holy place. Still, she waited. Patience, she reminded herself. One misstep invited chaos. Meanwhile, the city roiled with dissent. Bread prices spiked when Lord Ambrose redirected grain barges to the royal granaries. Dock workers struck, clogging the river gate with overturned carts. Gold cloaks cracked skulls, but riots flared anew each sunset. Sarah joined the crowds, listening. She noted slogans painted on shuttered shops. Queen Shireen bleeds us dry and down with the hand of famine. Word came of Dornish envoys camped beyond the city walls, refusing entry until reparations for Princess Myrcella's death were paid. Ambrose scoffed, but his negotiating purse remained closed. Inside the Red Keep, whispers, said the Queen. Regent's grayscale. Lesions had spread despite leechings. Some speculated the Hand fed her concoctions to hasten her decline. Others claimed he sought to wed his niece to the infant king, forging blood ties to the throne. The common folk cared little for such subtleties. They wanted bread, not marriage alliances. In the attic dormer, ARYA sharpened Valyrian needles while her bunkmates snored. She had found her moment, the eve of the harvest moon. Maiden's Day aligned with that date. The city would host revels, masks, torchlit parades. Distraction blanketed sin like a silken veil. 2 evenings prior, she slipped into the Whisperer's Market and traded an opal ring for a small phial of Ashai shadow essence. Odorless, near instant, in effect when delivered to the bloodstream. It left no discoloration save a faint purple bloom around the eyes, a blush the silent sisters often mistook for bruise. Perfect for a corpse found locked in prayer. Harvest moon rose swollen and orange, spilling molten light upon slate rooftops. Minstrels tuned lutes in tavern doorways. Jesters tossed knives that winked like captured starlight. Sarah blended among them, carrying a wicker basket of laundered linens, bound for the sept of the stonemason's daughter. The sept's outer courtyard thrummed with pilgrims making last offerings before festival. She curtsied to the porter and slipped through. Inside, incense warped the air, thick with cedar and cloves. Sarah's shoulders slumped, further beneath steepled arches of carved granite. She set her basket near the font, withdrew a small vial hidden in its folds, and moved down a side hall. Wire voices swelled, cloaking her footsteps. She found the culvert opening behind a tapestry depicting the seventh creation of first man. Easing through, she entered the service corridor on the far side, dank with drainage. A flight of narrow stairs led to the Hand's private chapel. She ascended, counting heartbeats. At the landing she paused, listening. Silence, pure, fragile. Sarah became ARYA in a breath. She shed the laundress cloak, revealing dark leathers beneath. From a hidden pocket, she drew a single Valyrian needle, its point glimmering blue. She uncorked the vial and dipped the needle. One drop clung to the steel, hungry as night. She pushed open the chapel door. Lord Alan Ambrose knelt before a candlelit altar, head bowed. He wore sober gray robes trimmed in apple green. In one hand, he clasped a prayer bead. In the other, a parchment folded thrice. ARYA stepped lightly, each footfall a ghost upon stone. 5 paces behind him she halted. "Do you seek forgiveness?" she asked, voice soft, altered to a breathy contralto. Ambrose stiffened, but did not rise. "Who intrudes upon my vigil?" "A friend," ARYA lied. "One who knows the weight of sin." He exhaled. "Then you know this is sacred. Leave me." ARYA moved closer until the candle's glow kissed her disguised curls. "I can't. You hold the sins of many, my lord. They beg confession." At last he turned, brow shadowed. "I do not." Her needle kissed his throat. A prick, nothing more. Ambrose jerked, hand flying to the spot. A crimson bead surfaced, then vanished beneath skin, darkening to bruise. He looked at her, confusion blooming. "What have you?" ARYA met his gaze, and for an instant dropped the mask. Wolf eyes stared back. Recognition fled, fleeting, swallowed by the drug. Ambrose's limbs slackened. He crumpled sideways. She guided him down gently, lowering his head onto folded arms as though he had succumbed to peaceful slumber. She retrieved the parchment from his fingers. By candlelight she unfolded it, a list of names, sealed with the hand's broken signet. At the top, Sansa Stark, Lady of Winterfell. Beneath, Bran the Broken, Lord of the Weirwood Throne. Then, Gendry Waters, Lord of the Stormlands. Each name bore a location and date. Bounties, orders of quiet removal. Arya's breath left her in a slow hiss. She tucked the parchment inside her sleeve. From her satchel, she produced a small clay vial containing tears of lies. Delivered to the wrong target, it seemed. She placed it in Ambrose Lack's hand, coiling his fingers around it. When the city guard found him, they would assume self-inflicted penance for secret shame. She wiped the needle upon her sleeve, returned it to its sheath, and stepped back to admire her work. A hand of the king dead in prayer, blameless in appearance, yet guilty secrets clutched in rigor mortis. Enough to fracture the fragile regency, but not shatter it beyond repair. Not yet. Arya slipped from the chapel, closing the door without sound. Down the narrow stairs, through the culvert, into the alley where night masquerade swallowed all faces. She donned Sarah's cloak again. Music thundered from distant squares. Fireworks burst like dragon fire in colored sparks. The capital danced, ignorant that power had changed shape behind locked doors. She walked among revelers until she reached the Blackwater Quay. There she paused, tasting sea salt on the wind. Somewhere across the waves, Nymeria howled beneath strange stars. Bran's ravens beat northward, sensing a tremor in fate's loom. And Arya Stark, assassin, survivor, heir of no crown, felt the realm realign beneath her feet. One piece removed, many more to fall. She turned toward the red keep's spiked silhouette, eyes gleaming. In their depths burned neither triumph nor relief, only hunger. A throne of swords awaited an answer, and Arya meant to give it. But first, she would teach the realm the price of breathing. One dash down, the dawning light that followed harvest moon painted kings landing in ragged bruises of rose and iron. The city awoke to tolling bells, first the mother's bells of mercy, then the warriors in wrath, clanging out of sequence as confused septons tugged at cords with white-knuckled fists. Above the skyline, the Red Keep's highest banners snapped in a restless breeze, and rumors sprouted like weeds in every gutter. Lord Ambrose had collapsed in a fit of pious passion. The stranger himself had stolen into the sept. The Queen Regent had ordered her hand removed for treatment. The tavern gossips could not settle on a single tale, but they agreed on one certainty. Power was again adrift in the capital, and any soul might drown beneath its undertow. Sarah kept her head down and her eyes busy. The laundress persona had grown convincing. She even dreamed in the girl's timid inflection, apologizing to phantoms for the clatter of buckets. Yet beneath the posture, Arya's mind cut paths through the pandemonium with icy precision. She watched the gold cloaks surge through alleys, clumsy in their urgency, and noted which streets they ignored, routes no commander dared waste men on if the scent of riot rose too high. She counted the apple blossoms fanning out from the Hand's Tower to guard regal doorways, now stripped of Ambrose's sigils, and she marked those guards whose cheeks bore weeping scrapes, evidence of hastily removed badges. Fear liquefied loyalties faster than coin. By midday, the small council convened in the Tower of the Hand, its membership a patchwork of survivors. Maester Hobb with his quavering cough, Sir Boros Caron, still wearing funeral black for brothers lost on the Trident, Grand Steward Marianne Swan and Beetle Green Silk that whispered louder than her voice. The session lasted less than an hour. Courtiers whispered that their words sounded like swords dropped upon marble, brittle and quick to shatter. When they filed out past the bronze doors, the reed-thin master of whisperers, called Sweet Seraphine, hurried straight to the rookery. Ravens burst into the hazy sky moments later, scattering towards Storm's End, the ARYA, and Sunspear. ARYA did not have to follow to know the letter's contents. Ambrose is dead. The throne sits unsheltered in a gathering storm. That afternoon, processions of mourners wound through the Street of Faith, carrying bundles of dried ivy and sprigs of pink apple blossom, Ambrose house flower made maudlin by death. The blossoms wilted before dusk, littering gutters like tongues gnawed from silent mouths. Sarah paused beside one such gutter and nudged a blossom with her boot, watching it spin in sewer runoff. Fragile beauty, quickly rotted at the edges. A lesson she would not forget. She returned to the attic dormer, only to pack. Sarah's usefulness was done. A laundress with no lord to serve would soon be questioned. By torchlight, ARYA cut her wig free, let her own dark hair fall in loose waves, combed it with fingers until it framed a different face, sharper, watchful, neither Bravosy nor northern. She stained her hands with walnut ink, leaving permanent smudges beneath the nails, and swapped dress for the mottled jerkin of a courier, complete with clay-sealed scroll tubes slung across her back. Couriers, unlike laundry girls, went where they pleased. Their presence was noted but seldom detained. Words moved empires. ARYA would move among those words like shadow. Night brought thunderstorms, great slate anvils of cloud piling above Blackwater Bay, thunder rolling like distant war drums. Rain sluiced across roofs and hammered shutters. The storm scrapped day-old blossom petals from stones and hurled them into drains. In that deluge, ARYA slipped through the Lion's Gate wearing courier colors. Brown cloak waxed against wet, satchel bound tight. She descended into the lower bailey of the Red Keep by presenting a forged chit bearing the sigil of House Vipren. Nobodies, but wealthy nobodies with a salt pork monopoly in Maidenpool, known to send panicked pleas whenever tariffs threatened. The guard, half sleepy and soaked, waved her through. Within the fortress, belly corridors twisted like intestines, torchlight bulging and shrinking against damp plaster. ARYA walked with measured haste, the cadence of a courier, late but not alarmed. Past the Hall of Lamps, she turned into a windowless gallery where marble busts depicted each of Joffrey's Kingsguard, their cold stone faces oddly petulant in flickering gloom. There she paused to listen. No footsteps behind. She lowered to a crouch, slid a finger beneath the bust of Sir Marin Trant. Cruel lips, laughably thin. The head tilted back with a dull clack, revealing a mouse-hole cavity once used by Varys' little birds. Dust coated the hollow, but inside rested a folded scrap of parchment smelling of recent ink. ARYA eased it out. A cipher? No. Plain Valyrian script. 4 verses from the 7-pointed star, each annotated with crimson circles. She frowned. Someone still used Varys' forgotten drop. She could burn hours untangling the code, but other fires demanded tending. She tucked the scrap in her sleeve and moved on. Above the Hen's Tower antechamber, the air stank of spilt wine and lamp oil. 2 apple blossoms. Former blossoms, she corrected, for their enamel badges were gone. Sat slumped against a wall, playing at dice with hands that trembled too much to hold lanterns. They spoke in low panic about wages unpaid since the bells tolled, about Steward Swan freezing accounts. Their fear tasted of opportunity. ARYA might twist them into knives later, but not tonight. She slipped down a narrow staircase known only to keep masons and schemers. It delivered her to the royal kitchens, where heat licked stone like dragon breath. Steam rose from cauldrons, thick with barley and bone. Cooks barked butcher's orders. Scullions flitted. One wore flour up her arms, hair knotted in a kerchief, the color of bruised plums. Jane Heddle, the new pie girl. ARYA drifted by, catching an eye's flicker of recognition. The girl's posture changed, chin dipping in the smallest bow. So the rumor had been right. Heddle carried her own secrets. ARYA moved on, but tucked the knowledge away as a coin for later barter. Behind the pantry lay cold passages, leading to Mager's holdfast. The scorpion ballista still hissed under Smith's hammers above, but its winch cable sat coiled like a serpent in the corridor, unfinished. ARYA traced the cable with a gloved finger. Taut hemp coated in beeswax. Strong, but brittle enough under sudden flame. She smiled. Voices drifted from the end of the passage. Two men arguing. Through a gap between barrels, she spied Sir Boros Karen facing Grand Steward Swan. Karen's temper split the gloom. Ambrose is gone, yet the wardens bicker over titles, Karen rumbled. Storm's End was promised men and coin. Who commands now? Nunnaby. Swan's voice quavered. The small council will elect a new hand within the fortnight, sir. The fortnight. Karen's mailed fist punched a barrel. Riots break in the streets today. Maiden's priests call Ambrose a martyr. The butchers call him famine spawn. We need swords, not shrouds. A regency order must. Karen's hand closed on Swan's throat. Orders are forged by men with iron in their veins. Find me such a man. He released the steward, stormed toward the pantry, then departed down passageways that rattled with resentment. ARYA let Swan slump, gasping. She weighed choices. Karen was proud and vain, but perhaps bendable, and if the steward already drowned in fear, he might float on any branch offered. She slipped back to the kitchens before the steward noticed. From there she exited into the upper courtyard where rain still spat like sheeted arrows. Couriers were rarely challenged beyond this gate. She passed unchecked into the cobbled square at the keep's base. A cluster of small folk sheltered beneath awnings. Candlemakers, bakers, washer girls, each drawn by curiosity to the keep's pulse. ARYA joined their hush. Overhead, a balcony encrusted with gargoyles jutted from a tower window. Behind its oaken doors, candlelight tremored. Regent Shireen's apartments. Regent no longer, the crowd whispered. Another rumor claimed Shireen lay dying, her scaled cheek pressed to wine-soaked linens. They said her steward had sealed the rooms, letting only the masked physician pass. ARYA wondered if the physician's mask concealed a face she once knew. Rain thickened, scattering the onlookers. ARYA retreated through Mushroom Alley, boots splashing rivulets. Dizzy tired, she ducked beneath a sagging arch into an abandoned counting house. There on its dusty floor she traced maps in candle wax, routes between keep, septs, riot quarters. She plotted the traffic of fear, marking each pivot point a single knife might tip into avalanche. Her plan stretched over nights: identify the crippled chain of command, cut its remaining tendons, let chaos open a path for something new. Yet success demanded more than kills. A queen of assassins required legitimacy in the bloodthirsty eyes of Westeros. She would not seize a throne only to be rejected, as Dragon Queen Daenerys learned in Fire. ARYA needed allies who embodied contrary strengths: the righteous, the cunning, the beloved, the feared. Choose them well. Mask her own puppetry behind their faces. Let the realm beg for the wolf they did not know rule. She began with Caron. Thunder boomed when ARYA intercepted Sir Boros Karen on his route back to the barrack. She emerged from an alcove draped in courier garb, scroll tube clutched. "A message, sir," she called, voice echoing with damp urgency. Karen halted. Rain matted his black surcoat. Sigils of the white boar glimmered under a lantern flare. Who from? Your liege lady, Bestakaran, Storm's End. She speaks of plots swirling in council. ARYA handed him a blank parchment sealed with beeswax, bearing House Karan's sigil, crafted hours earlier in the attic dormer, with a carved boar stamp. Karan cracked it, scanned non-existent words in gloom. Confusion furrowed his brow. ARYA seized that flicker. Your lady fears Storm's End may be sacrificed to curry Dornish favor, she murmured. She begs assurance. Will her lord stand sentinel or surrender to council whim? Karan's jaw set. Fools think Storm's End bows to sand lords. They will test the walls with ships out of Sunspear. ARYA dipped her head, but a new hand might silence them before war ignites. Name him. Name her. ARYA's eyes glinted. Lady Sansa Stark commands the Northern Riverlands in truth if not title. Join with the wolf, and the boar will never root alone. Karan stared as though seeing a gapless future painted in stormlight. Power liked simplicity. An alliance Northstorm would outflank Vale and reach both. But suspicion lingered in his gaze. Why deliver this, courier? Whose coin buys your tongue? House Karan's, ARYA answered. Pay or kill me, truth remains. Lanterfell's grain ships sail River Road even during riot, and recall Stark's keep oaths. At that word his stance softened. Once, the old King Robb's banners fought beside Karen's steel at Oxcross. Memory still bled. He folded the blank letter into his cuirass. I will speak to Lady Stark. If you lie, courier, I'll have your hide. Nazin, showed she. ARYA bowed and melted into the downpour, grin hot beneath hood. One link forged. By dawn, ravens streaked north, carrying Karen's impassioned proposal for mutual defense between Storm's End and Winterfell. ARYA trusted Sansa to read between lines. Sansa had grown gifted at such games. When a southern lord sighed, she heard dagger clatter. 3 days passed. Rain slackened, only to be replaced by stifling humidity. Flea Bottom's gutters steamed like cauldrons cooking off the storm's refuse. Bread lines stretched, gold cloaks cracked patience with cudgels. The Queen Regent was not seen in sunlight. Apple blossoms deserted posts for fear of mob justice. The small council scheduled a proclamation naming a new hand. Rumors said Grand Maester Hobb might be chosen as puppet, or Sir Boros Karen, if the storm continued. ARYA shaped fresh disguises, an urchin boy with cider-sticky hair, a hedge knight hawking his services for cockfights, a mute septa bearing alms for plague orphans. Each mask revealed new puzzle pieces. She learned the masked physician entered Shireen's chambers at dawn and dusk, always escorted by 2 silent sisters sworn to the stranger. She learned the physician spoke Kuhor's guttural dialect when surprised. She learned shipments of rare herbs, basilisk blood, widow's tears, arrived under seal of the Citadel's Black Council, circumventing customs. On a hot midnight, she climbed the outer tower's wall like a spider, fingertips gripping arrow slits, and peered through a narrow window into Shireen's antechamber. The regent lay in a grand canopied bed, breathing ragged gusts. Scales patterned half her face in cracked lilac mosaic. The physician bent over her, dropping liquid from a glass pipette onto her tongue. Candlelight slipped beneath his bone-white mask. ARYA glimpsed a scar along his throat, shaped like a noose kiss. She waited until he departed, then followed across roofs, stepping cat-like. He descended a servant's stair into the keep's southeast wing, old Maegor gateways unused since Tyrion's reign. There he unlocked a door with an iron key carved in the shape of a weeping skull. He vanished inside. From a vantage among gargoyles, ARYA watched until lantern light dimmed. Patience. Let him settle. At dawn she entered. The lock surrendered to a bent hairpin. Inside, rank odors of leech, water, fermentation, and stranger herbs wrung her eyes. Glass vessels cluttered shelves, scrolls bound in human skin rode lecterns. Jars held organs suspended in green liquor. And upon a central slab lay a waxy corpse, stripped to waist, its chest cavity neatly stitched. The corpse wore the robe of a silent sister. Arya's pulse steadied. Resurrection, experiments, or vivisection for knowledge. Neither belonged near a dying queen. Footsteps creaked above, loft stairs. Arya slipped behind a drape stinking of tannin. Through a ragged slit, she spied the physician hunched over a desk, scribbling notes. Candle glow flickered across his mask, carved to resemble a snarling ape. He muttered in Kahori, words rough. Scaled flesh rejects elixir, dosage increased, heartbeat erratic. He lifted a vial shimmering violet. Tears of lace laced with basilisk blood, perhaps. Enough to slow pulse without killing. Yet, Arya weighed angles. Killing him here risked raising alarms. Letting him continue risked Shireen's death on the physician's schedule, not Arya's. She slipped away, silent as breath, retreating down corridors until torchlight thinned. Outside, she inhaled sky and let the stink bleed off her thoughts. A different possibility unfurled. Let Shireen die naturally. Her claim would pass to the infant king, whose counsel would break like stale crust amid succession brawls. But a dead child king could crown opportunists, Lannister remnants, Baratheon cousins, Dornish princes. Chaos, yes, but shaped by other hands. No. Cleaner line was needed, one that ended in wolves. Arya needed the Queen Regent alive, but pliable. That demanded leverage. She found it in the ciphered verses from the bust cavity. After midnight, she locked herself in a forgotten scriptorium and poured moonlight through colored glass onto the parchment. The red circles corresponded to initial letters. Arranging them spelled Court of Moths Craves Salt Seed. Cryptic only until she remembered a Braavosi proverb. A moth may drink tears, but salt will cure its thirst. Meaning, the tears of Lys shipments attended something more than medicine, intended use by one known as the Moth. Moths. Assassins favored by Kuhor's merchant princes. So Shireen's physician served foreign masters, poisoning her gradually. Arya possessed proof enough to bargain. She confronted him during the dawn visit. Disguised as a silent sister, she shadowed the escorts down the corridor. Inside Shireen's chamber, she watched the physician place a cold compress on the regent's brow. Her breath rattled. Arya waited until the physician leaned close with the pipette. Stop. Her whisper stung in the candlelit hush. The escort stared, startled by a sister's speech. Arya removed her veil, revealing wolf-bright eyes above gray linen mask. The physician froze, pipette hovering. Arya displayed a Valerian needle, glistening with moon-pale venom. Another drop, and the moth drinks tears of his own. One escort reached for her. Arya flicked the needle, nicking the sister's wrist. She dropped, twitching. The second backed away, hands raised. The physician's knuckles whitened around the pipette. You know not. I know Kuhor's sigil brands your key, she hissed. I know the tears you feed her rot marrow while leaving pulse. Her gaze cut to Shireen. The child king needs a living mother, not a puppet corpse. What do you desire? An antidote, she said. End your silence. Brew it by dusk, or I flay your skin and sell it to the Citadel for study. Her smile showed wolfish promise. They pay well for rare leathers. Fear bloomed behind the mask. He nodded. Dismissed. Arya ordered the remaining escort, voice loathing compromise. The sister fled, dragging her convulsing partner. Alone, Arya addressed the regent for the first time. Shireen's scaled eyelids fluttered. In childhood, Arya had once seen Shireen, at Winterfell, a shy girl clutching dolls of painted wood. Now lesions framed sunken cheeks. Arya's heart tugged despite cold purpose. "Old princess," she murmured, brushing damp hair back. "The realm needs your voice, or at least the illusion of choice you provide." She pressed a cool cloth to Shireen's lips. "Live a while longer. Wolves hunt best in winter's shadow," the child woman moaned. Arya squeezed her hand, then withdrew. By dusk, the physician delivered a cloudy tonic. Arya forced him to sip first. His pupils dilated, but pulse remained steady. She nodded, then coaxed Shireen to drink. Within an hour, color rose faint in her cheeks. Arya bound the physician's wrists in silk cords, forcing oath. He would speak to no one of the silent sister who threatened him, upon pain beyond imagining. She left him chained to the vivisection slab, sealed in his own lair with no lantern, and a single tin bowl of water. Compassion enough. Next, Arya maneuvered the rumor's tide. A whisper reached sweet Seraphine that the regent's health improved miraculously after discarding Ambrose's medicines. Seraphine, no fool, traced rumor to the Hand's secret apothecary stockpiles. When she uncovered the Kahori import ledgers, outrage coursed new currents. She carried them to the small council and flung them upon the table like severed tongues. Grand Maester Hobb pronounced Ambrose's regimen malpractice most severe. The council, desperate for unity, condemned the deceased Hand's memory in shrill decree, naming his acts a hidden war upon the Queen Regent. Streets that once mourned Ambrose now spat upon his crest. Arya watched from an orchard alcove as apple blossoms tore their badges free and pledged to captain of the city guard instead. Karen's agents flooded taverns with free ale and stark minted copper. Corn Sansa had quietly loaned. Rioters cheered the wolf sigil painted beside the boar. Flowers of alliance bloomed, even in sewage. But a throne does not yield to rumor. One more pillar remained, the faith. The High Septon, pompous in saffron robes, preached that the sparrows must guide Westeros back to righteousness. He railed in sermons that the Queen's scales were punishment for her father's sins. Only penance and modesty could cure. Behind closed doors, he pocketed fees from every brothel window reopened after war. Arya's path to him was easy. Sin follows gold. She masqueraded as a scarred sparrow named Dove, head bowed, claiming visions of a scaled goddess ascending the Iron Throne. Word reached the Sept's inner circle of a pilgrim whose prophecies might bolster doctrine. They ushered Dove into a chamber hung with embroidered flames. The High Septon entered, rings glittering, fat jowls sweating. He bade her speak of visions. She knelt and whispered that the Mother's mercy crowned a girl, scarred by dragon plague and wicked men. That the girl would sit upon a throne remade of weirwood and iron, guarded by a direwolf queen whose face was death, yet heart was justice. The Septon's eyes glimmered at such tapestry. He believed he alone could interpret mercy. But beware, Dove warned, voice a hush. The stranger comes for those who hunger for coins more than souls. She pressed a coin into his hand, a black iron wolf. Its eyes were rubies. At its edge, a single Valyrian letter. V. Vengeance. The Septon paled. Subtle terror seeds sprouted in pious men's hearts. That night, he issued proclamation. Queen Regent Shireen was embraced by the Seven's grace. Any who opposed her healing opposed the gods. The riot simmer cooled by holy decree. Yet within the decree he wove new omen. The Wolf Queen's rise. Arya's myth took breath among candlelit pews. All this she did in 11 days. On the 12th, ravens returned from Winterfell. Sansa's reply to Caryn arrived, sealed with black wax. In Council Hall, Caryn shattered the seal and read aloud. The North remembers its friends. We answer Storm's End's call in honor and ice. Where the stag stands resolute, the wolf guards his flank. Winter comes for us all. Let us meet it together. No choice. Boros Karen thumped the letter against breastplate. Honor and ice, he proclaimed. Seraphine leaned close, reading subtext. Starks will garrison the Stormlands if asked. Maester Hobbs scratched notes, already foreseeing grain shipments resume. The council murmured approval. Grand Steward Swan posed the pressing question. But we still lack a hand. Karen spoke before others drew breath. We require a neutral arbiter until the Queen region recovers. A shepherd beyond faction. Seraphine's eyes narrowed. Name your shepherd. Karen met her gaze. Lady Sansa Stark. Daughter of Lord Eddard, once betrothed to Joffrey, kin to the Queen in spirit if not blood. She bears no banners south of the neck, yet commands respect. Who better? Maester Hobb objected that distance hampered governance. Karen reminded him that ravens flew swifter than rumor. Swan considered the grain. Seraphine measured the gilded scales of self-interest. If Sansa sat the Hand's chair, Seraphine's own trade network might flourish under northern truce. Approval formed like ice on river banks, creeping silent and inevitable. A vote was called. 4 of 7 councillors backed the proposal before the hourglass ran out. Sansa Stark, Hand of the King, by decree provisional until her arrival. Arya listened from a hidden alcove, pulse drumming a hunter's tattoo. The path widened. The wolf's paw stepped forward. Yet one barrier lingered. The Lords Declarant of the Vale. They kept eerie vigil from Erie's height, claiming protectorship of the child, King's cousin, Robin Arryn, and thus voice in regency. If the Vale withheld support, Sansa's appointment could sour to civil fracture. Arya would not allow it. She needed the Moon Men to howl with wolves. She donned the face of a traveling bard named Sir Lyle of Pebbleton, famed in the Vale for ballads of Longbow Lionel Corbray. Horse and hop suffice. She rode the gold road north into foothills where mountain clans prowled. Passing mists cooled her fury, steeping it in patience. At the gates of the moon she entertained garrison men with songs of winter roses and valiant knights, who bowed to cunning maids. When Lord John Royce descended to investigate the minstrel whose voice charmed soldiers off duty, Sir Lyle spun a fresh tale of a faceless wolf slaying tyrants so a true queen might ascend. Royce demanded the song's origin. Lyle claimed it came from ravens, glimpsed at dawn, wings spelled in prophecy. Royce, superstitious, asked if prophecy named the wolf. Lyle laughed. Prophecy names none, only deeds. They feasted, and after wine Lyle confessed knowledge of conspirators in King's Landing, plotting to wed the infant king to a Lyseni bastard, thereby ousting Arryn blood. Royce swore outraged oaths. Lyle offered proof, a ledger page stolen by a Sparrow spy, identical to Kohori import sheets, but altered to show dowry payments to Lys. Royce's fury would not wait for ravens. He marshaled retainers to ride for the capital under hush of night, bannered by Arryn Falcon and Bronze Shield. Vale Steel would greet Winterfell diplomacy before coins minted. Arya watched them ride south, silhouette banners slicing fog. She shed Lyle's face beneath a half-moon, burying harp beside an elm. Masks done, seeds sown. She returned to the capital as a butcher's lad, hood shading triumphant eyes. She found Jane Heddle in kitchens, tossed her a sealed parchment scrawled in invisible northern codes. Only mummers who'd played Winterfell knew. Jane cracked the seal, read the blank page, then smiled, understanding hidden words revealed by lemon juice near heat. She nodded, ready. Jane's role would come later. For now, Arya prepared the city for Sansa's arrival. She bribed street criers to recite verses of the Wolf Maid's wisdom. She arranged crates of bread stamped with a direwolf sigil to be handed free in Flea Bottom at dawn. She leaked tales of Sansa's mercy courts in Winterfell, where even wildlings found justice. Fathers named newborn daughters Sansa for luck. When Sansa's ship at last unfurled her banner upon the Blackwater, the crowd upon the quay roared like surf. She debarked in silver-white fur, trimmed with dusk gray, hair pinned by a shard of crystal carved in the shape of the North Star. Beside her strode Sir Podrick Payne, square-shouldered, the only knight she brought. Modesty impressed. Caron greeted her with a stag-shaped brooch, hammered of black iron, and offered a knee. Sansa bade him rise. The High Septon performed blessing. Shireen, now walking albeit with cane, met them at the Red Keep gate and clasped Sansa's hands. Cameras of memory shuddered across the mob, images to haunt songs. Arya watched from a rooftop as sister embraced scarred queen. Her heart thudded a rough rhythm of pride and dread. The board neared final strikes, yet Arya glimpsed something in Sansa's eyes, cool calculation clothed in warmth, as though she too maneuvered unseen pieces. For an instant, Arya wondered if Sansa sensed the hidden hunter above, knew whose knives paved her road. Then Sansa's gaze lifted, scanning rooftops. Arya pressed against chimney shadow. Their eyes did not meet. That night, Sansa sat the hand's council seat, slender fingers laced upon the carved weirwood armrest. She listened more than spoke, letting lords air grievances until their own contradictions stifled them. When Maester Hobb fretted about debt, she cited figures from ledgers many assumed lost. When Seraphin lobbied for port taxes, Sansa praised her initiative yet delayed vote pending investigation into dock corruption. A gentle leash. Councillors left chamber equal parts reassured and unsettled. Arya infiltrated the solar where Sansa took tea afterward, candles guttering low. She emerged from curtain gloom, revealed by that unmistakable silent tread. Sansa did not startle. She lifted teacup and sipped rosehip brew. "I wondered when you'd come," Sansa said quietly. Arya stood a heartbeat at the edge of lamplight, then crossed. They embraced hard, silent. "You moved pieces well," Sansa murmured near her ear. "Faster than I, even." "Faster only because you held the line," Arya answered. Sansa pulled back, eyes shining. "Will you show your face? I have only this one now." Arya smiled, tired. "I need not hide from wolves." They sat before a lattice window overlooking torchlit courtyards. Below, city folk sang of hands stark, whose justice would bind the realm. Sansa frowned at the lyrics drifting up. "They crown me savior already," she said. "They'll see imperfections soon enough." "They won't," Arya said. "I will cut them away." Sansa's breath stilled. "You plan more deaths." "Some," Arya admitted. "Enough to carve a throne you can guard. A throne for Shireen until the people beg her to abdicate in favor of strength. Then you will rule as protector, guardian of Child King. Rule just long enough. And then the wolf crown is yours." Sansa placed her cup aside. "Not mine," she whispered. "If a Stark must take the throne, why not the one whose hands already carry its sorrow?" Arya's silence thickened. "I'm a blade, not a banner. You're both." Sansa reached and clasped Arya's scarred fingers. "You cut paths, yes, but you also protect. And the realm needs a protector who will take no pleasure in crowns." Arya swallowed. Ambition had lurked at her spine, but she never dared gaze full upon it. Now mirrored in Sansa's earnest eyes, she saw possibility. A queen whose reign began, not with coronation, but with clandestine step. A queen forged by every face she'd worn, every name whispered to the godswood. Before she could reply, a knock on the solar door begged entry. Sir Podrick stepped in, bowed. "My lady hand, urgent raven from Jan Royce, his host camped 2 leagues out, seeks audience at dawn." Sansa smiled. "Show our friends the falcon's grace, provide tents." Pod bowed, withdrew. "Aye." Sansa turned back to Arya. "Vale stands with us. Soon storm north and veil form a shield unbroken. The reach will follow if grain flows. She squeezed Arya's hand. But I need one promise. Anything. No more facelessness between us. I must know where my sister walks. Arya drew breath. I will send you a sign. Always a direwolf claw scratched somewhere you alone can see. Sansa nodded, satisfied. Then hunt as you must. But remember, build as you cut. Arya rose. A Stark builds with stone and blood. I'll fetch the mortar. She left as silent as entry, heart hammering fierce harmony. Duty entwined with nascent desire. A throne of swords awaited. Yet now she felt its weight not as iron on shoulders, but as footpath under boots, each step measured in life reshaped. In the hall outside, she passed Jane Heddle pushing a cart loaded with steaming pie. Arya brushed her arm. Jane slipped a parchment into Arya's hand, never slowing. Arya unfolded it in torchlight. A map of Red Keep passages in one line. Queen Maker begins next turn. She smiled. Below, bells tolled, besides dawn though night, not yet dissolved. The realm wrestled dreamscapes of possible futures, ignorant of blades ghosting through its subconscious. Arya Stark walked toward darkness, still thick on stone. But her mind rode ahead to dawn. 5 hours or 5 years, the hunt endured until quarry lay still. And this quarry was no man or council seat. It was history itself, a chronicle of broken thrones. She would write a new chapter in Valyrian steel ink. When the realm awoke fully, it would find itself breathing in the hollow left by quiet deaths, inhaling air crisp as the north wind, exhaling fears soothed by unseen mercy. And on that breath would ride a name, sung first in whispers then in roars. Arya, the wolf who became queen by blade and shadow, yet ruled with eyes wide open, seeing every face she once bore, reflected in the realm she'd forged. A kingdom finally too wary, too wise, to trust crowns, made only of sword. A thin cloak of dawn mist shrouded the Red Keep's courtyards, softening the citadel's red stone into bleary shapes as though the castle itself still dreamed. Arya stood at the lip of a crenellation on the eastern wall, watching the city rouse beneath a sky turning from violet to pewter. Below her, scullions staggered from servants' doors, yawning around cups of watery ale. A lone gold cloak scratched his chin and shuffled along the parapet, boots slurping in last night's rain puddles. The hush before sunrise always felt perilous, like inhaling before the blade slid home. She flexed her fingers, testing the supple leather of new gloves Jane Heddle had stitched from doeskin, brought north by Riverland's traders. Each palm bore a hidden slit, just wide enough for a Valyrian needle to slip through without catching. When she clenched a fist, the aperture closed, leaving no sign of steel. Simple tricks sometimes saved more lives than sorcery. Behind Arya, footsteps approached, measured, armored, confident. She did not turn until Sir Podrick Payne stopped a respectful distance away. His cloak, stark gray, clung damply to mail. The years had carved new angles into his once soft face, but the earnest eyes remained. "My Lady Hand asked if you might join her for breaking fast," he said. "Tell Sansa the wolf hunts by scent, not by table." Arya replied. Podrick dipped his head. "She expected you might say that." From beneath his cloak he produced a folded scrap of parchment, sealed with 3 silver dots of wax, Sansa's private cipher. He offered it to Arya, then stepped back with silent courtesy. Arya cracked the seal. The note bore only 5 words, scripted in violet ink: "Stone drifts in quiet water." She snorted softly. Sansa communicating through haiku, typical. To any intercepting eye, the phrase seemed a philosophical trifle. But Arya caught the code. Stone meant Jan Royce. Quiet water referred to Blackwater Bay. Combined, they announced Royce had anchored his host across the harbor and awaited clandestine meeting before the city awoke. ARYA tilted her head toward Podrick. If Sansa slips the walls, I'll guard her path back. Podrick met her gaze. And if she doesn't slip, I'll guard anyway. He almost smiled. The young squire who once tripped on his own scabbard had grown into a knight who weighed words like gold bars. He bowed, pivoted, and left by the north stair. ARYA tracked him until he vanished, then vaulted down a narrow service ladder into a hallway deserted but for cobwebs. She skirted the kitchens. It was safer to avoid Jane's watchful eyes for the moment, and reached an armory door guarded by a dozing squire. With a flick of wrist, she tossed a pebble against the opposite wall. The squire jerked awake, gaze following the sound. By the time he realized nothing lurked, ARYA was inside the armory, rifling through racks. She selected 2 short swords of castle-forged steel, balanced but unremarkable, each with matte hilts that would not flash under moonlight. One she tucked through a loop inside her jerkin. The other she bound to her calf with linen strips torn from a grease-stained rag. She left a silver stag on the bench, a courtesy that would later confuse the inventory ledger. An hour later, cloaked in a plain brown traveling mantle and mounted upon a borrowed Garin gelding, ARYA slipped from the mud gate amid a procession of fishermen towing carts heavy with bleary-eyed flounder. The guards yawned, stamping cold feet, eager for shift's end. They scarcely glanced at the wiry stable hand bringing feed to dockside stalls. Once beyond the gate, ARYA diverted down a muddy lane lined with half-collapsed warehouses, their windows boarded against looters. Wild rats hissed in alley shadows. Gulls keened overhead. At the lane's end, a narrow strip of gravel sloped toward the water where a barge waited, moored by twin ropes to a weather-bleached post. A lantern glowed beneath its canopy, hallowing the figure of a stout man in bronze plate, etched with runic swirls. Jan Royce removed his helm as ARYA approached, silver-streaked beard glistening with dew. "No ravens sang you were coming," he grumbled. "No ravens, no," ARYA answered. She swung onto the barge's deck, boots thudding. The craft rocked gently as Royce gestured to 2 oarsmen, clan warriors in patched cloaks, who pushed off in silence. Fog swallowed city lights until only the faint silhouette of Aegon's Hill lingered astern. Royce studied ARYA beneath bushy brows. "Your sister speaks highly of you, yet she sends me a ghost wearing stable dirt. Should I take offense?" "You should take care." ARYA crouched by a coil of rope. "Sansa sends no one lightly." Royce harumphed. "Vale stands ready, but lords at home gripe that we gamble our swords on northern whims. I require proof of stability before the ARYA commits fully. Stark grain is sweet, yet sweet grain sour if thrown on a pyre." Arya's lips curved. "You fear the realm may ignite. I fear the realm will ignite unless the right hand grips the match." "Then let's put the match in water," ARYA said. "I have a proposal." Royce folded his arms. The barge glided across mirror water, oar blades whispering. ARYA explained. "A joint proclamation, Vale North, Stormlands, calling for a reconvened Great Council at Harrenhal, come next new moon. The Child King would preside in name, Sansa, as hand, would guide discourse. Royce would stand as master-at-arms of proceedings, ensuring neutrality. In return, the Starks would guarantee silver shipments from newly reopened Frostfang mines to fund the Vale's mountain road repairs. Furthermore, Storm's End would pledge grain quotas once northern winter eased, securing Vale food stores. Royce stroked beard. Grain and silver, strong incentive. Yet, who tempers Dornish vengeance? They demand blood for Myrcella. Run. Dorne listens to coin and chivalry, ARYA replied, and to rumors. Spread word the Great Council will entertain Dornish grievances with equal voice. Promise them the trial of Sir Gerald Dane be reopened if they attend. They will come, if only to brandish sand knives. Royce's jaw nodded in grudging approval. And the reach. I've already sown. ARYA tossed a pebble into the bay. Ripples spiral. A shipment of mirror gloss from Old Town will go missing tomorrow. It will turn up in Black Crown, stamped with Lannister lions. Lady Olenna Hightower's pride will sting. She will ride to Harrenhal to accuse, or to defend, depending on who whispers first. Either way, the reach arrives. Nah. The oars dipped, rose dripped silver. Fog thinned as sunrise bled cinnamon along the horizon. Royce grunted. You play deep. Not deep enough. I need your lord sworn to enforce the council's outcome. Whatever face the crown finally wears. Will you bind them? Royce's gaze met hers. I'll bind them. Then we have a cord. She extended her gloved hand. Royce clasped it. His grip bore years of whetstone. Beneath her leather, ARYA concealed the glint of Valyrian. But she offered a pact, not a cut. Back inside the city, ARYA returned the borrowed horse to a rain-drenched stable yard, scrubbing its mane before dawn grooms stirred. She ducked along marble corridors just as bells began to clang for morning prayer. Atop the Hand's Tower, she found Sansa alone beside a high arched window. Parchment spread across a lectern, quill hovering like a swallow hunting dawn insect. Yon Royce? Sansa asked without looking up. Tempered steel, ARYA answered. Bell stand. She let her eyes roam over the scribbled letter. Sansa drafted invitations to each major house, sealed with twin sigils. Crowned stag for the throne, direwolf for the hand. ARYA recognized the weight, an inflection point in history disguised as formal correspondence. Sansa set quill down. One false rumor could topple everything we've built. Did you truly scatter old Ambrose silver stamped with lions? Only a pouch. Thieves will multiply it with stories. ARYA pulled a stool close. By the time witness kisses Yandal's ear, Lannister armies will appear to march, even if they're still polishing debt ledgers. Sansa's lashes lowered, hiding thought. Some nights I wonder if webs tangle us rather than our prey. ARYA shrugged. We weave, we walk, we cut ourselves free. A breeze carried chimney smoke through the windows. Sansa inhaled, eyes moist. I dreamed of father last night. He stood atop Harrenhal's broken tower, watching leagues of banners drowning the lakeshore. His face was proud, yet mournful, as though he knew none of it would last. ARYA touched her sister's wrist. Dreams lie as often as courtiers. Perhaps. Sansa straightened. I've requested Bran send ravens. His green sight might glimpse dangers we miss. I hate depending on prophecy, but Bran is different. ARYA nodded. Her brother's mind straddled roots and skies. He glimpsed strands of what might be, but she trusted blades more than visions. Let Bran watch skies. I'll watch throats. They parted, Sansa to council, ARYA to shadow. City rumor turned midday into carnival. Word of the great council spread like spring wind through a wheat field. Harrenhal reborn as cradle of new order. The apple blossoms seeking redemption circulated flyers etched with dove sigils pleading peace. Street prophets declaimed that this council would fulfill the conqueror's prophecy of 7 kingdoms united under choice, not conquest. Bakers shaped loaves into wolf heads and boar tusks. Seamstresses embroidered miniature gold falcons onto ribbon tokens sold for a copper penny. Even whores adopted new bawdy puns about great council and sitting on iron. Yet deeper veins of panic pulsed beneath. Lannister and Maigret spoke of assassins lurking near Casterly Rock estates. Dorne's spies warned Princess Arianne that Harrenhal could be a trap. The Iron Bank weighed which loans to call. Each tension point was a hinge. ARYA meant to oil or hack. She sought the Iron Bank's representative, a lean Brevosi named Tycho Belovar, lodged in a townhouse off the street of Sil. Wearing the face of a marriage perfumer, ARYA pretended to deliver a consignment of desert saffron. Tycho, ever eager for rare gifts, admitted her into his study where ledgers towered like battlements. As his clerk tallied the weight of saffron, ARYA studied the open page of accounts. Vast sums owed by houses Lannister, Hightower, and Martell. Only small debts bound to stark lines. Caitlyn's dowry, long settled. She whispered a casual note. Bet against the silvers of Casterly Rock in coming moons. Rumors of fresh gold veins were false. Tycho's eyebrows soared. False, he repeated in Brevosi. Stag and boar now hold the key, she murmured, sliding a folded parchment between ledger spines. Ambiguous hint of Caroline rights. Salt, silver, and grain will pay interest sooner than gold dust in Lannister streams. She left before suspicion could follow. That night, Ravenquill scrawled across the narrow sea, bearing offers to refinance northern roads in exchange for stable tithes. Tycho's hand forging new chains of allegiance, even as ARYA vanished back into Silk Street bustle. She needed the Iron Bank's subtle blessing. A few whispers of defaults sufficed. Days blurred into a weaving of errands, forging letters, bribing septons to proclaim festival at Harrenhal, convincing placart drivers to reroute through quiet alleys, so disease would not taint narrative of budding unity. Through it all, ARYA kept step with the physician's laboratory, ensuring Shireen's health improved. The girl rose from bed after a fortnight, walking slow loops of the Maiden Vault Gardens, gray cloak hiding her scars. Small folk glimpsed her and wept in gratitude, as though the gods themselves had mended her. ARYA watched from archways with a strange tug in her chest. The realm's love was a weapon beyond steel, if wielded cunningly. Yet some corners of the capital resisted. In a tangle of decrepit streets north of Rhaenys Hill, a secret evening meeting of disaffected Gold Cloak captains plotted to install a puppet master of their own. Sir Boris Brune, a brute with Lannister backing. Brune promised higher wages and free license to pillage if they marched on the Red Keep during the council exodus to Harrenhal. ARYA caught wind from Jane's spy network. Rats in grain carts squealed louder than men. She decided to cull the rot. One humid twilight, she entered the abandoned bathhouse serving as the captain's lair, wearing tattered ironborn mail, hair slicked to skull, cheeks smeared with soot. A false tattoo, kraken tentacle, coiled down her neck. She told the door guard she bore Brune a message from the Rock. They ushered her into a pillared chamber where torches smoked and ale stank on breath. Half a dozen officers lounged near drained pools, dice rattling on cracked tile. Sir Boris Brune sprawled on a chaise, belly draped by chain shirt 2 sizes too small. He raised bleary eyes. Speak, kraken scum. ARYA rolled a coin across her knuckles. A true golden lion, minted in Tominai's reign. The Rock sends advance pay for your triumphant entry, she said, tossing the coin. Brune fumbled, nearly dropping it. Laughter from his men. But first, ARYA continued, they require proof of loyalty. She withdrew a parchment. Ambrose's death warrant list, now altered to include Brune's own name as co-conspirator. The hand spies suspect you aided Ambrose in poisoning the queen. The sooner you silence them, the sooner gold flows. Brune's face purpled. Poison? Lies. Namen. He. Surely. She shrugged. But rumors sway the Iron Bank. Deliver them Shireen's head, and you quell doubt. Fail, and your Lannister purse strings tighten to a noose. Brune swore, lunged to stand. His captains muttered, eyes flicking between parchment and leader. Doubt coiled. ARYA stepped forward, voice dropping to lethal hush. She slid a small dagger across a marble ledge where torchlight kissed its oily sheen. Don the queen's crown yourself. Kill the child. Frame the stalks. Blame the Veil invaders. Chaos pays double. Temptation writhed on sweating faces. Brune grabbed the dagger, veins bulging in neck. Arya leaned in as though to share more, but her hand darted faster than a striking adder, 2 fingers pinching Brune's wrist nerve. The dagger clanged to floor. In the same breath, her other hand produced 1 Valyrian needle, tip kissing Brune's jugular. Only she spoke. Lion Paymaster or Wolf Justice. Shoes. Brune tried to move. His muscles slackened under paralytic soaked on the needle. His eyes widened in realization as limbs refused. Arya stepped back. Captains scrambled to catch their collapsing leader, panic fracturing their bravado. She sheathed needle. Ambrose's poison took him, it seems, she announced, emotionless. Take his body to the Silent Sisters. Prove your innocence by swearing to the new hand. The captains gaped. One knelt, feeling for pulse. Another crossed himself. Arya turned, cloak swirling, leaving stunned men behind. In corridors, she discarded Ironborn helmet, rubbing soot from cheeks. Another threat collapsed without public fanfare. Precisely how she preferred. The city inhaled a new mood, wary optimism. Grain barges from White Harbor arrived, escorted by Karen longships. Royce's pikemen policed markets, paying for goods with honest coin. Sansa convened open forums on Tower Square where any citizen could voice grievances. Scribes recorded each petition, and soldiers posted resolutions within a fortnight. Bakers began offering hand loaves, braided rings shaped like clasped wrists, symbol of unity. Arya seldom paused, but one midnight she found herself atop the rookery roof. Gaze turned north. She imagined snowfields blazing under aurora, huskies' distant howls, Brand's ravens ghosting across moons. She missed the smell of pine after snowfall and the creak of Winterfell gates. But the realm was here, bleeding and begging. A soft flutter drew her notice. A raven landed upon the parapet, silver band glinting. She untied the message. Brand's cipher, simple and stark. River cracks before flood. Beware the dragon in chains. Arya reread thrice. Dragon in chains? Metaphor? Or literal? Rumors of surviving dragon eggs persisted. Daenerys' ashes had scattered across oceans, but who knew what embers lingered? She slid the parchment into boot, mind branching with contingencies. Preparation for the Great Council accelerated. Caravans departed daily toward Harrenhal. Carpenters, scribes, bakers, heralds. Arya selected 20 apple blossoms, now loyal to coin and conscience, training them in silent signals, half-remembered Braavosi hand language. Jane Heddle drilled them in disguise, teaching how to vanish inside a crowd. She filled barrels with charcoal, pitch, and saltpeter, disguised as flour consignments, insurance caches along the King's Road in case of pursuit. On the eve of departure, Arya infiltrated the King's nursery. Tommen slept, cheeks flushed, lips pursed as though perpetually tasting lemon cake. Shireen dozed in a rocking chair, blankets piled, cane propped nearby. Moonlight striped floorboards. Arya knelt, studied the child's face. So small, so breakable. A single whisper could unmake him. She forced herself to weigh possibilities. Let him live and risk pawns. Let him die and risk civil war. Raise him into tool for stabilizing new order. She brushed a finger against his chubby fist. He clenched reflexively, trusting. Stay small, she murmured. Stay silent. She rose. Shireen stirred, blinking. Dark sister, she rasped. Her voice fluttered like moth wings, delicate since illness. Are you satisfied with my progress? Arya considered. You'll ride to Harrenhal with us. Shireen nodded. I wish to speak before the realm, prove I'm not fragile. Fragile things cut deepest, Arya said. Come, but remain behind curtains until I signal. Shireen's scaled lips smiled weakly. A wolf's howl. Listen, For an hour, Arya turned away. Behind her, the Queen Regent whispered prayer to the seven. Arya to none. The royal procession rolled out at dawn under banners whipped by brisk wind. Sansa rode at carriage window, flanked by Podrick and Karen. Royce might marched ahead, bronze armor gleaming, ember bright. Arya wore the colors of a courier again, scouting gaps, ignoring the nobility's pomp. Along gutters, urchins waved scrap flags. Old women tossed flowers. Gold cloaks, not in revolt, lined route. Stances disciplined by new captains, loyal to the hand. The King's Road stretched like a muted hymn across warring memories. Scorch marks from dragonfire at Blackwater. Graves of peasants starved during false spring. But hedges sprouted new green. Orchards bloomed. Storm's End sent barrels of cider at each crossroads. Vale hawkers distributed dried apples. Subtle propaganda tasted sweet. At Maidenpool, Arya slipped ahead into a smoky tavern to rendezvous with a smuggler named Lamy Galt. One-time footpad of the Brotherhood, now purveyor of secrets ferried across narrow sea. Lamy revealed that Dornish outriders shadowed the column from afar. Their Prince Kyle demanded assurance of safe passage before pledging to counsel. Arya drafted a letter under Lamy's eye, forging Shireen's regal hand to guarantee diplomatic immunity and 10% repentance levy paid from Great Council treasury. Lamy galloped off south to deliver. 2 days later, ornate Dornish tents sprang near Harrenhal's shattered outer wall, their orange pennants fluttering like flame tongues. Arya saw them and exhaled relief. The board gathered its pieces. Harrenhal, monstrous and maimed, welcomed them with echoing hollows and gaping archways. Pale morning light slanted through melted towers, painting streaks upon moss-slick flagstones. Yet bustling workers had draped banners and erected tents across the Moatbridge courtyard. Braziers glowed, roasting boar. Stonemasons shored unsafe arches. The ruin pulsed with reluctant life, like an old warhorse roused for final parade. Arya secured vantage across the fortress. Rooftop nests for archers, caches of pitch disguised as barrels of ale, trapdoors marked in chalk for quick escapes. She learned the layout like second skin. The Great Council opened beneath the hall of 100 hearths, though only 12 hearths remained standing. Lords crowded benches, small folk perched on broken statues, maesters scratched quills. Murmurs ricocheted. When Sansa ascended the dais, the room fell into hush fit for tombs. Arya stood unseen in an alcove, hood shadowing face. She tracked each gaze. Royce solemn at Sansa's left, Hightower Lady stern at right. Dornish prince lounging but alert. Brian of Tarth behind columns, sword across blue cloak, iron bank, invoice scribbling margins. Everyone's posture revealed hope or hunger. Arya's knives slept. Sansa began. She spoke of shattered realms needing stitching, of children who'd never known spring, of dragons dead and living hearts that must rise in their absence. She outlined the council's purpose: to elect formal regency terms, adjudicate grievances, restructure war-torn trade. Her voice held neither timidity nor arrogance. It carried weight hammered by grief. Then she paused. The hall breathed. Arya signaled an apple blossom on balcony. He loosed a low owl call. Curtains parted to reveal Shireen stepping forth, cane tapping. Gasps rippled. Scales glinted like moonlit mosaic, but her posture was regal. She addressed them. I stand before you healed not by miracle alone, but by hands of those once strangers. Northstorm, Vale. Let no border sever us now. Her words trembled, but flew true. Lords craned closer. Arya saw doubt fracture under empathy. A scarred sovereign stirred hearts more than polished speeches. Sansa extended an arm. Shireen leaned on it. Together, They faced the hall. Princes and prelates exchanged glances. Battle lines blurred. Royce spoke next, proposing a triune regency. Queen Regent Shireen as moral compass, Hand Sansa as executive steward, and a rotating marshal selected every 2 moons by council vote to command realms' armies. The first marshal he nominated, Cerberus Caron. Caron blinked, shocked, but rose to thunderous applause from Stormlords. Reach and Dorne withheld claps, assessing. A Hightower cousin stood to propose Lady Olenna Hightower for second marshal rotation, thereby taming Reach suspicion. Royce conceded, marking schedule, equal terms. Dornish prince laughed and demanded his turn thereafter. Murmurs warmed. Arya scanned faces. None looked toward alcoves. All eyes devoured stage. Perfect. She slipped away. In a damp passage behind dais, she met Jane Heddle and 6 cloaked blossoms guarding bound captives. 2 Dornish spies caught sabotaging grain wagons, and a red-bearded Cellsail who'd tried to poison Harrenhal's well. Arya inspected them. The spies spat curses. The Cellsail begged. She ordered one spy released to carry message home. Your prince's presence spares him the dungeon. Cross us again, and the wolf's jaw snaps. He bolted into sunlight. The other spy she kept, insurance. The Cellsail she questioned. Bribed by whom? He mumbled about a hooded woman bearing lion's signet. Arya's gut tightened. Lannister claws still scratched. She asked for a face. He gave none. She handed him to Blossoms for imprisonment under Caron's guard. If he vanished, Caron's honor trembled. Back in the hall, voting had begun. Proxies raised banners, scribes counted. Arya leaned against a pillar as sweat dew glimmered on nobles' brows. 2 hours later, the Triune Regency passed with overwhelming majority. Only 3 Lannister allies abstained. A roar erupted. Shireen wept openly, wiping tears with scaled hand. Sansa bowed head in solemn acceptance. Arya watched applause wave across chamber like wheat. She expected satisfaction, but felt only sharpening focus. Victory opened new fronts. Lannister's licking wounds would strike again. Iron Bank still hedged. The dragon in chains, Bran warned of. Unknown. She slipped behind tapestries into a spiral stair descending to dungeons once used by Harren's torturers. Torches hissed damply. In a narrow cell, she had instructed Blossoms to store certain cargo. Crates retrieved from Black Cell beneath King's Landing, sealed since Robert's reign. She unlatched lid. Inside, iron rings bound strange apparatus, links of dark steel, manacles forged for limbs, far thicker than man. Sigils of Valyria, etched surfaces, dull with age. Dragon chains indeed. Master Hobbs' rosters claimed they'd been fashioned during Maegor's rule to secure Balerion should madness strike. History swore they never were used. Yet here they lay, proof of old fear. Arya touched cold links. Bran's raven, dragon in chains. Perhaps prophecy spoke not of living beast, but of the memory of them weaponized. Someone sought to bind realm through dread of dragons. She needed counsel. That night, Arya visited the Apple Blossoms encampment beyond the moat. A dusky lantern glowed tense, while men huddled over firepots playing dice. Jane Heddle emerged from shadows, wiping flour from hands. She still baked pies to calm nerves. Arya shared discovery. Jane's brows climbed. If Lannisters stole rumor of living dragon, they might claim it through these chains, bargain for throne, or attempt to sell fear to Iron Bank, Arya said. Dicho invests in leverage. Jane pondered. We must learn who smuggled the crates. They moved under seal of former Master of Coin. Treason's roots dense. Arya sighed. I'll dig them before snow falls. She lifted a pie from Jane's basket, bit into venison richness. Warm gravy, chased fatigue. A horn bleated across night, signal from inner ward. Arya stiffened, hand on hilt. Another horn answered, dissonant, urgent. Flashes of torchlight flickered along battlements, silhouettes scurried. She sprinted across drawbridge. Inside, a knot of soldiers converged near stables, where smoke billowed from straw-packed barrels ablaze. Horses screamed. Arya dodged handlers, eyes darting. The fire, though fierce, seemed designed for distraction, no path to spread beyond stable. She scanned courtyard. Shuttered windows of guest tower glowed with candlelight. Too many, too sudden. Intruders. Arya dashed into tower. Stairs spiraled upward. She climbed 3 flights to corridor thick with incense. Doorway ahead splintered inward. She drew bronze hilt sword and advanced. Inside, a veiled knight lay unconscious, helm dented. Beyond, a cloaked figure rifled chests. At her arrival, he whirled, brandishing crossbow. Lantern light flickered over mask of plain white porcelain. "Stand aside," a muffled voice ordered. Arya flicked blade tip, unmasked or bleed. The figure fired. She twisted, quarrel grazed sleeve. Before he could reload, she closed distance, kicked crossbow aside. He drew dirk, slashed. She parried, steel raining soft. Quick footwork, trained. They circled. Arya feinted high, swept low. He leapt, landed cat-like, stabbed at her ribs. She caught wrist with glove slit, Valyrian needle springing into palm. She jabbed under arm seam, find the gap. He convulsed, dropping blade. She swept leg, toppled him, knelt on chest, ripped mask. A woman's face glared up, sharp nose, lion gold hair bound tight. Lannister, but eyes were ice blue. She spat, cursed wolf, too late to stop our roar. Arya pressed needle tip to jugular. Name, call me Mercy. The woman smirked. The irony jolted Arya. Mercy was a mask she once wore on Bravosi's stage. Rage flickered. What seek you? Letters between Royce and Hightower. Proof of conspiracy. Leverage. Her laugh rasped. We still write the realm's balances. Remember that. Arya sensed fatalistic fervor. Interrogation might glean it. But chain of command mattered. Who sends you? Golden lion sleeps, but cat's paws scratch. Her pupils dilated. Poison? Arya lifted needle. Too late. Foamy spit at lips. She convulsed, eyes glazing. Self-inflicted pill secreted in tooth. Classic Lannister endgame. Arya cursed, searched pockets. A tin disc engraved with sigil of Iron Bank. Interesting. Footsteps thundered. Podrick appeared, sword drawn. Arya stood. Saboteur dead, she reported. He knelt to check pulse. Not alone. A second fled across baths. I'll follow. Arya sprinted downstairs, heart drumming. Outside, chaos tamped. Stables fire subdued. Soldiers fanning out. Arya tracked scuff marks into outer courtyards, then onto crumbled battlement where moonlight washed broken stones. A slender figure vaulted parapet onto narrow ledge above moat. Arya followed without thought, boots scraping mossy rock. The fugitive skidded, regained balance. 20 feet below loomed water flecked with moonshards. Arya drew throwing knife, aimed, hold. Figure froze. Hood slipped, revealing shaved, head tattooed with Bravosi prayer. Not Lannister. Who pays you? She called. Coin of those who keep kingdoms solvent, he answered. Accent Bravosi. Iron Bane. Silence admitted truth. Arya advanced. He glanced at water, counted odds. She twitched knife just enough. He inhaled. Then wordless, he backstepped into nothing, falling gracefully. Splash erupted. Ripples spread. ARYA cursed, scanning black surface. No bobbing corpse. Currents moved swift beneath ruins. He might reach shore unseen. She sheathed blade. Iron bank, dragon chains, they wove same weave. Lenders ensuring collateral by destabilizing others, betting on resets. If Trime Regency threatened interest revenue, they'd sabotage. She must warn Sansa. Dawn seeped gray as ARYA barged into council chamber, soot-streaked, still panting. Sansa, Karen, Royce, and Hightower sat half-seated around maps, eyes red with sleeplessness. Attack neutralized, ARYA declared, tossing tin disc onto table. Iron bank behind saboteurs. Dijo Belovare, seated in corner calmly sipping tea, raised brow. A serious allegation. ARYA's glare impaled him. Their agent carried your seal. Dijo examined disc. Forgery possible. Yet Iron Bank will investigate. His nonchalance grated. We desire stable clients, not war. Royce growled. Your clients attempted arson. Defoe spread hands. Prove it and we cancel all Lannister notes. ARYA flashed chain link she'd retrieved. Prove you stockpiled Maegor's dragon fetters to blackmail council. Tycho's composure wavered. Speculative. Sansa lifted palm. Enough. The Great Council will audit bank relations. Until then, Iron Bank suspends operations in Crown lands. Accept or depart. Tycho studied her, recognizing steel beyond courtesy. We accept temporary suspension, he said coolly, bowing. ARYA exhaled. Small victory, but ephemeral. Over following days, Council drafted charters, revived Kingsguard selection panel, established grain levy limits, created new post of Master of Roads commanded by Vale engineers. Delegates argued for hours, but ARYA noticed a shift. Debates ended without swords drawn. Compromise threaded serious minds. Each night, she patrolled ramparts, ensuring sabotage remained quelled. She met Jane in secret, planning contingency routes east to Gulltown should Council fall. She wrote Bran, request more visions regarding dragons, bankers, and tides. One dusk Bran's raven returned. Chains do not bind fire. God the forge, not the beast. ARYA puzzled. Forge. Perhaps the council. The forging of new order. Protect process above throne occupant. She accepted mission. When charters finalized after 17 days, the council prepared closing ceremony at Harrenhal's Godswood, where a single-heart weirwood somehow thrived in blasted soil. Under its crimson leaves, they would sign parchments and swear oaths before old gods and new. ARYA arranged perimeter, arches in trees, blossoms disguised among singers, pitch barrels hidden near root hollows. Sansa donned plain wool gown, refusing golden embroidery. Shireen carried no crown. At high noon, lords filed along crushed gravel to clearing. Wind rustled red leaves like muttered prayers. Mesters unrolled parchment across stone altar charred by bygone dragons. Quills dipped in raven black ink. Sansa lifted quill first. Her signature swept bold. Sansa Stark, Hand of the King, Guardian of Seven. Shireen followed, hand trembling but steady. Shireen of House Baratheon, Queen Regent. Ink pooled in scale crevices of her knuckles, symbolic blood. Royce signed, Caron, Hightower, Martell, each name layering faction over faction into single covenant. ARYA watched crownless ceremony and felt chambers of her heart unlock. Unity wrought by choice, not iron. Yet fragility chilled her spine. Charter passed hand to Tycho Bellovar, representing Iron Bank. All eyes on him. He paused, quill poised. Then he signed, Tycho Belova, servant of the Iron Bank, witness to covenant. Gasps, acknowledgement of new order. In moment of hush, a thunderous crack split air. Arrow striking altar with shattering echo. Chaos surged, lords crying out, guards drawing steel. ARYA spun, eyes tracking trajectory. Archer atop ruined tower knocked second arrow, aiming at Shireen. ARYA lunged, shoving Regent aside. The arrow hissed past, slicing Shireen's cloak. Blossoms loosed crossbow bolts. Tower archer ducked. ARYA sprinted through underbrush, scaling rubble, leaping gaps. She reached tower stairs where bowstring twang echoed. Up spiral stair littered with rubble. At top, moon-pale hair of assassin fluttered. The Bravosi who'd escaped moat. He notched another arrow. ARYA rolled, arrow thunking into stone. She charged, blade flashing. They clashed beside crenellation broken by time. He wielded short sword, footwork, swift. ARYA countered high feint, stabbed low. He parried. She caught his wrist, twisted, disarmed. He headbutted her. Stars exploded. She reeled, but momentum spun into kick that sent him staggering near edge. He recovered, spit blood, reached to pull vial from belt, crimson liquid. Fire potion? He hurled it. ARYA ducked. Vial shattered on stone, flames licking moss, smoke billowed. Visibility blurred. She sensed his movement left, followed sound. Blade met flesh. He cursed. Flames roared, heating air. He pivoted, attempted leap across gap to adjacent parapet. ARYA seized chain link from belt, whipped it like bolas, entangling ankles midair. He fell short, slammed into ledge, fingers clawing. Chain pulled taut. ARYA hauled, dragged him back. His eyes burned hate. Below, council guards swarmed courtyard. She knelt, thrust sword through his chest. Breath hissed out. He rasped, Bank will forge new chains. He died. Fire crackled. Smoke rose. ARYA stamped flames, smothering with cloak. She retrieved charred bow and flung into moat. Below, Sansa guided shaken lords back to altars. Ceremony resumed under guard watch. ARYA descended tower, dragging corpse to stable yard for inspection. Tycho Belovara approached, face pale. A tragedy, he murmured. Rest assured, Iron Bank did not sanction. Spare lies, ARYA snapped. She produced Assassin's signet ring, stylized key over dragon skull, the bank's shadow section. Tycho's jaw clenched. Sansa arrived, eyes blazing. Your contracts expire this day. The crown will repay honest balance in copper, not souls. Depart by sunset. Tycho bowed stiffly. We will withdraw, but debts remain. One way or another, they are paid. Not by children's blood, Sansa said. She turned away. Tycho left, cloak whipping. ARYA caught Sansa's shoulder. For first time, her sister's composure cracked. Tears well. ARYA hugged her. Forge is guarded, she whispered. In days that followed, Trine Regency ratified charters, dispatched messengers north and south, minted new coin bearing 7-pointed star, enfolded by direwolf paw. Lannister envoys arrived to negotiate debt restructure. Sansa forced them to sign children hostage clauses, ensuring peace. Dorne accepted reparations and opened wine trade. Vale engineers began repairing King's Road. Storm's End oversaw grain distribution. Yet ARYA stayed restless. Dreams carried drums from across sea. Dothraki banners, unsullied phalanxes. The world still turned. One twilight she found Sansa in Harrenhal's Godswood, fingertip tracing heart-tree grooves. Crunch of leaves, announced ARYA. Sansa smiled. It begins, she said. And never ends, Arya replied. They sat beneath red canopy, dawn's last light bleeding through. Crickets chirped. Wind stirred secrets. Sansa glanced sideways. You could stay. Rule openly. Arya shook head. I've got edges. Realm needs shadow. Then promise to write. Sansa's smile trembled. Arya produced small wooden direwolf, carved crude from heart tree branch. Scratch this shape on stone, I'll find you. They hugged long. Tears glistened. 2 wolves, 1 crown-bound, 1 wind-born. Before sunrise, Arya donned plain leathers, strapped travel satchel, slipped from camp. She mounted lean bay gifted by Royce. She rode east, following faint road toward Gulltown, where ships sailed to Essos and beyond. She carried map of unknowns. Iron Bank intrigues, whispers of chained dragons, unfulfilled prophecies. Her path curved like arrow flight. Swift, unseen, guided by purpose sharper than steel. Behind her, bells pealed from Harrenhal, not in mourning, but in promise. A sound half dream, half memory. The realm breathed new air, sweet with tentative hope. Arya did not look back. She felt sunrise warm the nape of her neck, smelled fresh earth after storm, and tasted salt of tears dried into resolve. Forward lay seas, cities, and perhaps dragons awaiting freer skies. She urged the bay into canter and whispered to the wind, no one, yet everyone. I am Arya Stark, queen of quiet deaths, guardian of living dawns. Let the games never chain us again. The hoofbeats faded into horizon. The story of a realm reborn continued, etched not in monuments, but in the choices of those brave enough to carve their own names upon the thin veil between shadow and light.